Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, UV Curing Advancements for Medical Device Manufacturing. I'm Amanda Hosey, your moderator for this 60-minute program, which focuses on advanced UV curing technologies for demanding device manufacturing. Our speakers today are Peter Kopp of Excelitas Technologies, Josh Anderson of PVA, and John Beasley of EMI UV. Peter Kopp is a Senior Product Manager at Excelitas Technologies with responsibility for Omnicure UV spot and area curing solutions. He has more than 30 years of experience in high-tech solutions for a broad array of industries. Josh Anderson is the General Manager of Dispensing Systems for PVA. He has 23 years of experience in the dispensing and coating industry and is well-versed in all aspects of the fluid application process. Josh particularly specializes in custom manual systems. John Beasley serves as EMI UV's Western Regional Sales Manager. He has more than 35 years' experience in the UV adhesives and process industry, both on the chemistry and the UV curing process side of the technology. If you have questions for our speakers, please send them through the Ask a Question box, and we'll address as many as possible at the end of the program. Also note that a PDF of today's slides may be downloaded under the Event Resources tab on your screen. Now, on to the presentations. Welcome, John, Josh, and Peter.
Thanks very much, Amanda. Hi, everybody, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Peter Kopp, and I'll be providing an overview of Omnicure curing systems. I just wanted to mention I'm really pleased to be co-presenting today with our partners PVA and EMI UV. It's great to have you both on board. I'd like to start us off with a brief overview of Excelitas. Some of you might know us, and some of you maybe not as well. And there have been some changes over the last couple of years, so I'll go over that as well. So we're a large global company. As you can see, we're involved in a number of technologies. Lasers and light sources is where Omnicure falls, and we also have expertise in optics, optronics, imaging, sensors, detectors, power supplies, electronics, etc. We also have a lot of experience in LED UV technology, arc lamp, microwave lamp. In fact, we've developed some of the very first UV curing systems. Okay, to the next slide. So a little overview of how we've grown. And I just would ask you to, I guess, focus on the last two entries there, 2023 and 2024. Those are recent acquisitions where we brought on the Phosion brand. So that's UV LED curing systems. And then subsequent to that, Nobolite, where we have microwave lamp solutions, IR solutions, as well as UV LED in addition. Okay, so a little overview of Omnicure, the Omnicure product line. So this is gives you an idea how things break out in the product portfolio for Omnicure. You can see it's divided into two sub-platforms, if I can call them that, spot curing and area curing. In the area curing side on the right, it's a solely LED-based area cure series that we have. It comes in a number of different form factors and optical output ratings. And on the left-hand side, you can see the spot curing line broken into the other two sub-platforms. So we have a lamp-based S-series that I'll talk about in quite a bit of detail. I'll actually focus on that one more so here in this webinar. And then to the right of that is the LED-based LX series, which we'll also touch on briefly. So you might be asking at this point, you know, which is the better solution for me? So really it depends to some degree on your application and also your expectations for system performance and operating costs, etc. So if you look on the right-hand side, there's some boxes there that kind of lay out what some of the typical characteristics are of an arc lamp based system. So for the S2000 Elite series, we've got closed loop feedback, which I'll talk about in detail, as well as calibration. That system has got a very broad spectral output, a very wide adhesive compatibility, because there have been a lot of a lot of formulations have been formulated with lamp-based UV technology in mind. It's got a very high peak irradiance, and yes, that's it for the arc lamp system side of things. For the LED-based system, so the LX series, that system has got typical LED life of greater than 10,000 hours. Of course, in that system, you're using LEDs, so there's no mercury source, there's no lamp. The power consumption is typically considerably lower. And then the other thing that differentiates it from the lamp-based system is LEDs are, for the LX series, are pretty much single wavelength, whereas the lamp-based system is a very broadband source. Okay, so let's talk about the LX 500 a little bit. It has IntelliLamp and closed loop feedback, so that means that we track the LED hours closely, and also closed loop feedback means that we're always controlling and managing the output of the system. All sources, whether they're arc lamp or LEDs, they age and the output changes over time, and so we control that with closed loop feedback, and I'll also talk about that with respect to the S2000 series. We offer precise radiometry and system calibration solutions because it is important, especially in a medical device application, to ensure that you have output that is accurate and repeatable. We've also got step cure capability where you can initiate a multi-step curing profile, which is useful in some cases where you're trying to prevent a cure that's too fast. You're trying to avoid shrinkage of the actual compound. And then in terms of integration, there's a lot of different integration options with that system that allow you to communicate with it effectively and also do firmware upgrades in the field if you need to do so. Okay, so now we'll just move on to talk a little bit about the S2000 Elite. So this is really our flagship system. It was launched in 2023. And this is really designed for really demanding applications such as medical device manufacturing. The system and its heritage, it's over 20 years presence on the market. And there are some key advantages on this system. I mentioned closed loop feedback. So this is something that is really specific to Omnicure systems. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in the upcoming slides. Let's just dive into some of the details now. We'll just touch a little bit before we do that. We'll touch on kind of the applications coverage that we see with this system. And so in the medical device manufacturing area, you can see down below there's a very quite broad range of applications where this can be effectively used. Balloon catheters, syringes, needle hubs, filters, endoscopes, and so on. And there's obviously more. Okay, let's talk about the S2000 Elite and the actual UV source for a minute. So it is a 200-watt mercury arc lamp, and the advantage here is it really reduces IR energy transmission. So it's really a lower heat cure. 2,000 hours are guaranteed in terms of what you can expect from the lamp. And the IntelliLamp technology really optimizes lamp life, and I'll talk about that in an upcoming slide in much more detail. The broadband source, it's really a broadband source versus LED. So as I mentioned earlier in this presentation, the patented closed loop feedback technology really allows us to monitor the output of the system and just maintain it over time. So it automatically adjusts for any slight variations, which is really, really important in terms of having an accurate and repeatable process. It also has a high-speed shutter, the Elite does, with a very fast response time, and also the ability to be able to calibrate the system, which is also very important for this application. If we look at the lamp a little bit, in more detail, you can see over on the right-hand side in the graph what happens with closed-loop feedback in terms of output and what happens if you don't have closed-loop feedback. So you can appreciate the importance of that particular feature. So you can assure that you're always in control with the S2000 Elite, which gives you the benefit of higher yields because you have a more reliable process, and you can also save on calibration costs because although it is advisable to calibrate the system, closed-loop feedback keeps you in control until the next calibration cycle. In terms of IntelliLamp 2.0 technology, this is really a technology that tracks the hours of operation, displays those for you in the UI, and also prevents a hot strike condition from happening. So it extends really the life of the lamp. Okay, radiometry, really important. And we have features that enable stability, such as closed-loop feedback. But in addition to that, it's always wise to be measuring, monitoring, calibrating. And all of these sources, as I mentioned earlier, whether they be LED or UV lamp, they will degrade over time. And it's important to keep those outputs in control. So for both the LX500 and for the S2000 Elite, we offer radiometry accessories that allow you to calibrate the system. And so what you can do is you can calibrate either using irradiance or optical power, and all of these calibrations are NIST traceable. So these radiometers are calibrated in the factory, and the calibration is NIST traceable. So you can assure the absolute best accuracy. And the detector system that we use is proprietary. It's highly dependable. It's been used for years. And it's really designed specifically and optimized specifically for Omnicure UV sources. Okay, a little bit about the user interface. So on the Elite, you've got a really nice LCD touchscreen display. You've also got some navigation buttons there, so you can decide which one you're more comfortable with. Both will allow you to navigate through the UI. There's a flight recorder feature, which is really critical. So in applications or areas where it's important to be recording what's going on with the system, especially in regulated environments, and be able to look back at an event and be able to see what the system was doing. This feature is really important to be able to achieve that advantage. It also allows for easy data export. So if you want to get the data out, you can do that quite easily. Yeah, overall, it's a great event tracking system. Okay. You also have the ability to control multiple systems using a web UI. As I said, you can from any device, you can control multiple systems. You can build and manage curing profiles remotely if you want, and then transfer them back to the system. You can push software updates to multiple units. That's a good feature to be able to control consistency across your operation and all the installed systems that you would have. And then also from a troubleshooting perspective, it gives you a little bit more power to use command line interface type commands for any advanced troubleshooting and diagnostics that you might want to do. In this slide, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but I just wanted to show you the vast array of light guides that we have available. Light guides and adapters, we have quite a broad range. So, almost regardless of your application, there's a light guide that will do the trick. If there isn't a light guide that will do the trick off the shelf, we have quite an in-depth custom product service and a team that does those. So they would consult with you and find out what special needs you have for your application, and would be able to design something specifically to meet that need. So just to wrap up, really, I wanted to, on this slide, just kind of zone in on the support and expertise that we provide. The SR program is that custom products program that I spoke of, where we can create custom solutions for your unique applications if you have some. We also have an in-house materials study lab. We often engage that team with customers that have questions about perhaps they have a new adhesive that they're looking at and they want to just make sure that it's going to be compatible with one of our systems. And so we'll work with it in-house and study and share the results with you. And also we have an on-site integration support team. So if you're having integration issues, they can help you out there quite effectively. And also we have a factory service and technical support. So that's my overview. And at that point, I will hand it over to Josh.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Peter. So just a quick overview of PVA. If you guys haven't heard of us or worked with us before, we are an industry leader in fluid dispensing and coating equipment technology. We've been around for a little over 30 years, and I've been with PVA for a little over 20. They started off actually manufacturing dispense valves and kind of grew into more of a complete dispensing solutions company, combining fluid delivery with automation. As we do have many standard products in dispensing, we mainly offer customized solutions just to fit every application and kind of address the unique challenges and requirements. So PVA is headquartered in Half Moon, New York. This is where all the engineering and manufacturing is done. This is where our main applications lab is located. Over the years, we have added additional sales and service offices to support our customers throughout Europe and China. Particularly in Mexico, we did just open up a demo facility there in Guadalajara last year. So just a quick introduction to our automated solutions, just showing two of our standard platforms right here. The PVA 350 on the left and the Delta 8 on the right, which are two common units. So between a lot of the automated systems we do, you'll see a very similar design. The biggest difference is within the frame size and the gantry size to be able to work with larger or smaller parts. But all of these systems are typically constructed using servo-driven ball screw slides for the 3 axes of motion, typically also adding in a 4th axis of motion. And all of them actually run on a Pathmaster software, which is a software platform designed by PVA specifically for dispensing applications. So this allows you to kind of create, draw programs, modify programs as the fluid wants to lay down, pretty much just run the system. Any dispense valve technology can be added to the gantry of any of these robots and typically offer a number of different options as far as part handling, loading, unloading via shuttle systems or conveyor systems. So within any of these automated solutions, PVA offers a variety of options to optimize any process. Since each application is unique with its requirements, many of these features can be added and combined to ensure the part is properly processed. So these options can range anywhere from surface treatment prior to dispensing, warming up a part or the fluid so it can flow onto the part better, adding multiple heads onto a single gantry for different functionality between spraying, jetting, dispensing, or metering valve applications. When it comes to placement accuracy, we offer a number of features such as part or pallet locating, tip calibration, or inspection systems. So I mentioned earlier, PVA is heavily based on customizing solutions and typically delivers complete automated packages, which may include everywhere from the pressure tanks that hold the fluid, metering devices to ensure the proper amount of fluid is delivered to the part, dispense heads, and then a robotic platform. We also offer complete dispense packages for handheld applications when robotics doesn't make sense, just for more labor-intensive applications. And also, if it doesn't make sense for PVA to supply the robotics kit, we can actually work to support custom dispensing solutions with controls packages that can easily be added into any robotic platform a customer may build in-house. Benchtop and collaborative robots have gained popularity over the years, especially used in process development and R&D. So complete dispense kits can be supplied for easy integration to those. Or PVA can supply complete dispense kits with controls to a third-party integrator if it's a component of the line that they're working on. So we're pretty much open to supplying any portion of the dispensing technology solution. So for many low volume applications, startup applications, or processes that require manual dispense and assembly, PVA offers benchtop solutions that can incorporate just about any one of our dispense valve technologies into a small station. So these often include smaller fluid reservoirs such as syringes or bottles. They can also be configured with different type of dispense valves that can be mounted on handles to be activated with a lever or a foot pedal activation of a simple benchtop shot timer. So since there are so many fluid chemistries, viscosity ranges, and packaging sizes, over the years PVA has developed many standard and custom fluid delivery systems just to fit about any package size out there that a manufacturer can come up with. So these can range anywhere from your smallest packages of 3 or 55 cc syringes, kind of working up through cartridges, 1 liter, 1 gallon bottles, before kind of getting into 1 gallon, 5 gallon pails, or 55 gallon drums. So for pressure tanks, they can typically be used for low viscosity flowable materials that can be moved with maybe 100 psi or less shop air. But in order to transfer high viscosity, non-slumping, non-flowable fluids, we typically build those into higher pressure pumping systems, which would typically come out of cartridges, pails, or drums. So we can transfer the fluid up higher pressures to a dispense head, maybe 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 psi. So again, with so many different products out there that vary in chemistry, viscosity, and the amount of fluid that needs to be applied per part or a substrate, PVA has developed a wide variety of dispense valve technologies that can be utilized. More commonly, these range from time and pressure needle valves, diaphragm dispense valves, rear closing valves with adjustable snuffback, atomized spray technology, or jetting valves. Many applications also do require a higher degree of accuracy and repeatability over time. So in these cases, we actually have metering valves available. When I say metering valves, that's more positive displacement fluid dispense technology. So they can be anywhere from simple pneumatic valves or servo-driven valves that can use any number of technologies from piston displacement, rod displacement, gear pump technology, or progressive cavity valves. So that kind of covered just a brief overview I wanted to show you of our product line, just to understand a little bit more about what PVA offers. Next, I'm going to jump into just a few common applications that we see and the solutions PVA has come up with to offer for these applications. So cannula to hub bonding, if any of you are familiar with it, typically requires a very small amount of UV curable adhesive to be dispensed where the cannula is inserted into some type of plastic hub before being cured with light so it can be handled immediately afterwards. So in these applications, the amount of adhesive required needs to be very accurate and very repeatable to fill that area and not overfill it. So in this process can be done with either a single head, but often done in very high volumes that require many dispense heads to be acting as once. So in this application, we've solved it using our standard MV250 series metering valve, which actuates with pneumatics to move a needle up and down, and it has an integral check valve design on the fluid inlet and outlet. So each time it cycles, it always meters one dot of fluid. So And the dispensed volume of that fluid can be adjusted and locked in place with the micrometer on top of the valve. So with this small footprint of the valve, you can actually mount many valves close together as low as a 3/4 of an inch spacing between them. They can all be independently operated, even fed from a single pressure reservoir. And since the metering is done at the tip, any variations in fluid viscosity or pressure from the tank will not affect your volume. So an application that fits our atomized spray valve technology very well is for stent coating and balloon coating. So this process often involves applying a very light, thin, uniform coating of a UV curable fluid evenly over the surface of a balloon. So PVA has been able to process this application with handheld spray units and automated solutions, with obviously the automated solution being a little bit easier to control the process and evenly coat the fluid throughout the part. So in this application, we actually utilized a custom part fixture inside of a 3-axis PVA machine. This part fixture actually spun the balloon while the low volume, low pressure atomized spray valve moved across it to apply a very light mist of uniform coating over the top. So during any syringe assembly process, some type of mechanical or air-driven piston or mechanical wiper is typically inserted into the large opening in the top of the syringe. And before that can be done, a small amount of light oil or lubricant is typically applied to the ID. And traditionally, atomized spray valves were used, and PVA still does regularly supply these for that process, which utilizes a burst of air to spread the low viscosity lubricant into the syringe. But we also offer a product called the RC200, which is a very unique applicator called the rotary coat valve. This actually inserts the nozzle into the syringe and spins that nozzle using centrifugal force to apply a ring of fluid around the ID of the part. Um, so this technology works very well with low viscosity materials, typically limited to about 1,000 centipoise or less. But the main benefit you get from this is you're not using atomizing air. So if there's a facility that wants to avoid atomizing your silicone style lubricants, just to limit that in their facility, this valve can be utilized. So another application is many round parts may need a gasket bonded to them, and this is often done in a single piece flow process for production. For this application, we utilize the RD100, which is a rotary dispense station with an FC100 dispense valve mounted to it. So this unit actually utilizes a single stepper motor on the base of the unit that can hold the part and spin the part while it's being dispensed, and is fully programmable. So you can add time delays when the fluid starts and stops and speed of the applicator. So this would allow an operator to place a single part on the dial, hit the cycle starter foot pedal. The dispense valve will come down. As the part rotates underneath, fluid is applied in a 360 degrees pattern around the part. Once completed, the valve will retract out of the way, and the operator can easily remove the part and go on to the next step, which is typically curing and assembly. So this UV potting application requires a very small amount or very precise amount of UV fluid to be dispensed and encapsulate a sensor onto a plastic housing. So for this application, we actually utilized a progressive cavity valve, which offers true positive displacement, and mounted it onto one of our robotic gantries. So this technology utilizes a smooth stainless steel rotor inside of a double helix Calres rubber housing with a servo motor to drive it. So no fluid can pass until that servo motor drives forward. So when it does, it can dispense a very accurate and exact amount of fluid at a programmable rate, so that we can control the rate that the fluid actually fills into around the component and get the exact volume. And we can maintain a high degree of accuracy because metering is done about as close to the dispense tip as possible. And then lastly, specific UV curable fluids may contain, from time to time, an added cyanoacrylate or anaerobic chemistry in order for the UV fluid to cure in shadowed areas, uh, which light may not be able to reach. So this is typically called secondary moisture cure. So any part of the fluid that gets under a component will eventually cure over time through moisture. And since cyanoacrylate doesn't react well to most metals, which is stainless steel, which is what most of our dispense valves are made out of, PVA does offer a line of valves which are all plastic diaphragm dispense valves that utilize Teflon diaphragms inside of Delrin plastic housings, so they can be compatible with just about any chemistry. Um, so that was kind of just my brief overview of our product line and a few applications. And I am actually now going to turn it over to John Beasley.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate it. EMI is a 40-year-old UV adhesive company with worldwide distribution. These pictures that I'm going to show are not customer parts. They are representative assemblies that are good UV adhesive candidates. Most manufacturers have a proprietary mindset on their designs. The main advantage is speed of cure using UV energy to initiate the reaction. Next to cyanoacrylates, I've not seen a faster cure process, but the UV cure allows you to check for any bubbles or leaks, then do the cure when you want it to. Choosing either an acrylic, urethane, or epoxy adhesive depends on what you're bonding. Some surfaces, like silicone or PTFE, are real problems to bond to. They're low in surface energy. UV adhesives are good at absorbing the bond stresses and not transmitting them to the other side of the bond between the substrates. This is what allows you to say bond stainless steel to plastic, plastics to glass, and plastics to other substrates. With a cationic epoxy adhesive, it would be good for bonding the metals to each other or metals to glass. The free radical chemistry is good for most plastics bonding. For a UV bond, at least one or ideally both of the surfaces needs to pass the UV energy in order to cure. Plastics being bonded would also benefit being annealed prior to being assembled, and the surfaces should be dry. The low molecular weight of an acrylic structure can stress crack and act like a solvent and stress relieve the rigid plastics. A few companies offer a sample kit for their medical adhesives. These are especially useful in the product development groups. We work with a core group of adhesives. A lot of the time we can modify the uncured and cured properties to suit the application requirements. Being able to modify the properties like viscosity and cured hardness. Ideally, the bond thickness should be somewhere between, say, a half a thousandths to 3/1000ths in thickness. The radii of it and any edges should be smooth for good adhesive flow. Again, as in the picture of the needle hub assembly, one of the materials easily passes the UV energy. This kind of assembly is a great application for both surfaces being bonded are UV clear polycarbonate. The adhesives also create a good seal, which is important when handling blood product. This is a blood oxygenator that works as your heart and lungs during surgery. You can see that there are a number of bonds where a good fluid seal is required to the flexible tubing connections. All of these have a lot of surface energy, so it's easy for the adhesive to wet out to the surfaces, making bonding much easier. If the adhesive doesn't wet out on the surfaces, then no amount of curing is going to achieve a good bond. A good trick is to expose the bond surface to UV energy, which helps drive off any surface moisture. Corona and plasma treating the surfaces usually helps as well if you have access to them. Usually the more rigid plastics are easier to bond to than flexible, softer plastics with high elongation. This is why the adhesive manufacturers look to modify the adhesives for greater flexibility. These kind of assemblies aren't necessarily medical in nature, but with genetics, a lot of the adhesive properties are desirable for making assay coupons. Once fully cured, they can be in contact with the assay chemistry without affecting its performance. A slightly different version takes advantage of the epoxy adhesive's ability to bond well to quartz. It's kind of hard to see, but there's a glass cover plate bond sealing the fluid flow path. The same idea as the last slide, but this one is a borosilicate that requires a modified adhesive to bond better than the standard glass bonder. The viscosity was also modified so it wouldn't flow into the fluid channels before the UV cure step. Most adhesives that UV cure can have an additional heat cure catalyst added to them, and some can also have a moisture cure capability. These are great properties to have for shadowed areas where you can't fully expose the adhesive. These same capabilities are available in the epoxy chemistry. They have superior moisture resistance over acrylic adhesives. Also, they are great glass and metals bonders and do bond some plastics. This is the chemistry that I have had successful step cure processes performed on. A wide range of uncured and cured properties are available in UV products. They are readily modified to add properties to, such as fluorescent tracers and properties like electrical conductivity. With the epoxy adhesives, you get really good environmental survivability with low outgassing and very low shrinkage. The free radical adhesives give you a lot of plastics bonding capability with some glass and metal strength. There are a few applications where long-term neurologic implantations are present in tissue contact. Once fully cured, there aren't any adverse effects from tissue contact. Both types of chemistries work well with common sterilization methods. They do tend to yellow like the plastic substrates do under chlorine dioxide sterilization. Oop. Uh, Not my slide, but there it is.
All right. Well, thanks very much, John, for the very interesting presentation, and thanks to Josh and Peter as well for theirs. Just a reminder to the audience, you can still submit questions for our speakers through the Ask a Question box found on your screen. But now we can go ahead and take some questions that have already come in. First up, John, what's the best UV wavelength for curing?
We found that the best one for the chemistry is the 365 nanometer wavelength is the most efficient across.
All right, great. And another one, Peter, to you. Will step curing reduce shrinkage of the UV material?
Yeah, the answer is actually yes, for sure. You know, even John, I think, alluded to formulation where it was beneficial. And what it really allows is it just allows for the reaction to slow down a bit during that kind of break point between steps. And since it's an exothermic reaction, it just provides some time for a release of heat. And that allows the material to thicken or gel up slightly before you go and cure it further, which reduces that migration or movement, and hence the shrinkage that can happen if you hit it all kind of in one shot. And then, of course, in the next step, once you've succeeded in kind of going at it slowly, then you can further thicken or cure the material. Having said all that, though, it's always a good idea to sort of test and confirm, right, that the step cure is really the right approach for the formulation that you're using for your particular application.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Peter. Next up, another for you, John. Will the adhesive continue to cure when the UV exposure stops?
With the free radical acrylic modified urethane chemistry, the answer is no. When you take the light away from the adhesive, that reaction stops. The cationic epoxy chemistry does have the ability to continuously chain for a short duration of time until it comes back down to room temperature.
All right, great. Thanks very much, John. Next up, Josh, do you do anything specific when building dispense systems for the medical device industry?
Yes, when assembling any type of fluid delivery or dispense system for the medical device industry, all wedded components of the system are 300 series stainless steel, Teflon and Calres seals throughout. Anything that typically comes in contact with a part is stainless steel or anodized aluminum. So we do have a specific set of guidelines when building for the medical device industry.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that, Josh. John, are the adhesives moisture resistant?
For the most part, the epoxies are superior for moisture resistance. It's a much smaller molecular structure, so it's a lot tougher for moisture to get into it. The acrylics and urethane type chemistries do have a tendency to more readily absorb moisture.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Next up, can cationic epoxies be carbon loaded for conductivity and still be UV cured?
I'm sorry, was that directed to me or? This is John.
Whomever would like to answer that one. Okay, John, thanks.
Yeah, the top surface, absolutely. It depends on the percentage of carbon loading in the material, because your ability to get the UV energy past the carbon fill is limited. It's a pretty good shield. So typically the adhesive would benefit from having some sort of secondary heat cure capability or moisture cure capability.
All right, thank you, John. Next up for you, Josh, what does the process look like for testing new applications in your lab?
So typically, once we've evaluated a process, any of our customers are welcome to ship us some of their parts and materials with assembly instructions. And any test criteria we want to develop as far as shot weight testing or number of parts that should be done to prove out cycle time on a part. We would often ship those completed parts back along with an applications lab report and video to show how it's done. We also welcome visitors whenever we can. So if you can visit us at our Half Moon, New York location, we'd love to have people come in and work in our apps lab to kind of help us develop processes for new applications.
All right, thanks very much, Josh. Another one for you, Josh. What is the maximum rate of use for the SC dispensing valves?
It's the difficult question to answer because If you're talking about the cycle rate, you can cycle them up to probably 5 times a second. If you're looking at fluid flow through the valve, we actually have a number of different valves, such as the FC100, FC300. So a lot of it depends on the viscosity of the fluid and the amount of fluid pressure we're able to build up on the inlet. But if we can get those details, we can usually come up with an estimate.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, let's see. Next up, can you comment on the chemical resistance to ethanol from adhesives you would normally recommend for plastic bonding to whomever would like to address it? And I can repeat that. Can you comment on the chemical resistance to ethanol from adhesives you would normally recommend for plastic bonding?
Yeah, this is John. Yeah, just about any of the chemistries, if you're going to do like a short-term exposure to ethanol, like some sort of like post-assembly cleaning step, all of them do fine in that kind of exposure. The concern is if there was some sort of application where you had like continuous exposure to ethanol or immersion, they will soften the adhesives and they have a tendency to creep right down the bond line, reducing the strength.
All right, great. Thank you so much for that, John. Let's see. Again for you, John, do you have recommend any adhesive for multiple 50+ autoclave cycles? And also, what are trying to bond to LCP or PCB materials?
Okay, so yeah, again, I'd go back to the UV cure, but in this case, I'd use an epoxy-based chemistry because of the nature and their superior moisture resistance. The LCP and the PCB bonding both benefit from having a good argon-based plasma treatment to that surface prior to assembly.
All right, thank you. Josh, over to you. Do you have cooled solutions for dispensing epoxies that have reduced lifetime at room temp?
Yes, we have come up with a number of solutions over the years. It all depends on the temperature you need to achieve and the size of the reservoir. But we can cool anything from syringes to larger reservoirs, which can hold a few gallons of fluid and transfer them up to the dispense valve. So yes, we do.
All right, and one more for you, Josh. What kind of jetting technology do you use, pneumatic or piezo?
We actually use both. We have 2 different versions. The pneumatic version is a little bit slower than the piezo, but we do have both technologies available, depending on the viscosity of fluid and how fast it needs to be applied.
All right, fantastic. Thanks so much. Next, what certifications are required for FDA approval of adhesives?
Well, this is John. Minimum, you're looking at the Class 6 requirements by the USP, where they're looking both for the cytotoxicity and the general toxicity requirements. It's just known as the Class 6 testing. The ISO certification is the exact same test. All they did was lift the USP language out of the older format and create the ISO requirement for it as well. The testing is exactly the same.
All right, thanks very much, John. Looks like that's all the questions we have for today. But I would like to thank Peter Kopp, John Beasley, and Josh Anderson, as well as our audience for joining us. And thanks to everyone who submitted those questions. We'll supply the speakers with all that came in so they can follow up. As a reminder, you may download a PDF of today's slides under the Event Resources tab found on screen. In just a moment, a survey will pop up. Please tell us what you thought of this program by answering 3 quick questions. This webinar will be available on demand, and an email will be sent to everyone who registered as soon as the archive is ready. Once again, we thank you all for watching.